Welcome to the Office on Violence Against Women, FY 2018, Improving Criminal Justice Responses to Sexual Assault, Domestic Violence, Dating Violence, and Stalking Grant Program, or ICJR, formerly known as the REST Program, pre-application webinar. This webinar will be presented by OVW Program Specialist Sue Puglisi from the ICJR team. Although I will not review every page and section of the solicitation, there have been a number of important changes to the FY 2018 ICJR solicitation. We want to make sure that you are aware of those changes. I will review the ICJR program grant requirements, and if you have any questions during the presentation, please type them in the chat box. I highly encourage you to read the solicitation in its entirety before beginning your application. There are a few logistics we need to go over before we get started. All participants will be placed on mute during the webinar. You can ask questions throughout the webinar by typing your question into the chat section on the bottom left. Yeah, I know, but I can remove the slide. Not like this. Oh, that's right. Okay. There are a few logistics we need to go over before we get started. All participants will be placed on mute during the webinar. You can ask questions throughout the webinar by typing your question into the chat section on the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. For those of you that are connected to the webinar via the computer, if you lose connection, please sign in again using the link that you received from the email invite. If you have any questions or comments, please use the chat feature, public for the group participants, or private for the facilitator. For those of you that are connected to the webinar via the telephone, if you lose telephone or audio connection, please dial back in using the call-in number. If you have any questions or comments, you can email them to the ovw.icjr@usdoj.gov mailbox. If using audio, please select *67 to mute your phones. Please do not place the call on hold, as many organizations have hold music, and your hold music will interrupt the presentation. If you have any technical issues, please email the OVW ICJR mailbox at ovw.icjr@usdoj.gov. How to apply. First thing to know is hopefully you found us because you have already downloaded the application. For information on how to apply, we have provided you with a link in this slide. Be sure to use that link. It has valuable tools such as links to the grants reference guide and resources for your application. We have also provided the ICJR solicitation link as well, which is found under www.justice.gov. Then go to agencies, go to OVW grant programs, and then open solicitations. The most important thing you should do before applying is please read the ICJR solicitation in its entirety, from the beginning to the end, whether you are a new or continuation applicant. I cannot stress enough, and I do apologize, we're going to be repeating several things during this webinar that oftentimes applicants tend to overlook. MOUs. We're going to start things off a little differently this year, and I want to briefly talk about the MOU and how this is a critical piece of your project. I will discuss this in depth later in the presentation. Your MOU is the foundation of your project and should be strong enough to stand on its own by the time you apply to the solicitation. If your MOU is still a work in progress, by the time you apply to the solicitation, you could possibly encounter problems such as securing commitments from potential project partners and obtaining the necessary and required signatures from the authorized representatives from each partnering agency. You should have all of this in place months before, if not at least weeks before you actually downloaded the solicitation and prior to applying to the ICJR solicitation. Addressing purpose areas. And you'll find this on pages 2 to 4 of the solicitation. Activities supported by the ICJR program are determined by statute, federal regulations, and OVW policies. Applicants must address at least one of the 22 statutory purpose areas listed on pages 2 through 4 of the solicitation. Only include statutory purpose areas that you truly intend to address. Sometimes applicants have a tendency to state in the application that they will address several statutory purpose areas. However, in the project narrative, the What Will Be Done section, the narrative may reveal that the applicant will only truly address one or two of those purpose areas. There is no extra credit for listing additional statutory purpose areas. In the next few slides, I will address the mandatory program and partnership requirements. Mandatory program requirements for government and court applicants, and you'll find this on pages 5 through 6 of the solicitation. OVW requires that each applicant develop an MOU with its project partners. Applicants that are states, units of local governments, tribal governments, or courts must enter into a formal collaboration with one or more nonprofit, non-governmental, victim service provider or providers that serves victims of sexual assault, domestic violence, dating violence, and stalking. You must also involve the victim service provider in the development and implementation of the project. If you fail to include the mandatory partners, your application will be removed from further consideration. If you're not sure who you should partner with, I have provided a chart as a reference on the next slide. Mandatory program requirements. You'll find this on pages 5 through 6 of the solicitation. This slide provides examples of what we mean by units of local government. A county, city, township, town, borough, parish, village, or other general purpose political subdivisions of a state. For the purposes of this program, police departments, sheriff's departments, prosecuting attorney offices, health departments, parole and probation departments, and universities are not considered units of local governments under this program. If you submit an application without the proper unit of local government as the applicant, your application will be removed from further consideration during our basic minimum requirement phase. OVW priority areas, pages 7 through 8 of the solicitation. Although these OVW priority areas are not required, there are a number of OVW priority areas that applicants can address. Applications proposing activities in these priority areas will be given special consideration during the review process. Please do not confuse the statutory purpose areas, which you are required to address at least one of the 22, with the OVW priority areas, which again, you are not required to address. I do want to highlight a new OVW priority area for FY 2018 that OVW has a special interest in. Sex trafficking and other severe forms of trafficking in persons who have also experienced sexual assault, domestic violence, dating violence, and stalking. Applicants proposing to serve trafficking victims must specify this in their application and must demonstrate that their capability to serve this population either through their own expertise and experience or through partnerships with organizations and/or agencies that have such expertise and experience. Statutory priority areas for FY 2018, and you'll find this on page 8 of the solicitation. Although not required, there are a number of statutory priority areas that are defined by legislation that applicants can address. Activities that may compromise victim safety and recovery, pages 9 through 10 of the solicitation. On pages 9 through 10 of the solicitation, we have listed 13 activities that have been found to jeopardize victim safety, deter or prevent physical or emotional healing for victims, or allow offenders to escape responsibility for their actions. This list is not exhaustive. Applications that propose activities that compromise victim safety and recovery or undermine offender accountability may receive a deduction in points during the review process or may be eliminated from further consideration entirely. Out-of-scope activities, page 10 of the solicitation. On page 10, we have listed activities that have been found to be out of the ICJR program scope. Applications that propose out-of-scope activities may receive a point deduction during the review process. Applications that are determined to be substantially outside the scope of the ICJR program will not be considered for funding. So when drafting your grant proposal, you want to remain within the scope of the ICJR program. Unallowable activities, pages 10 through 11 of the solicitation. Please keep in mind that these are specific to the ICJR program as well as other OVW programs, but more specifically for our program is the very last one noted in this slide. Lobbying except with explicit statutory authorization, fundraising, purchase of real property, physical modifications to buildings, including minor renovations such as painting or carpeting, construction, and this is where it gets specific to the ICJR program. In general, no uniforms, weapons, automobiles, and security systems that require permanent installation. Award information, pages 11 through 12 of the solicitation. All awards are subject to the availability of appropriated funds and any modifications or additional requirements that may be imposed by law. There is no guarantee that funds will be available in the future. Therefore, OVW encourages you to develop a plan to sustain project activities if federal funding through the ICJR program were no longer available. The grant award period is 36 months. Your application budgets must reflect 36 months of project activity, and the total estimated funding, block number 15 on the SF 424, must also reflect 36 months. Generally, the award period will start on October 1st, 2018. Carefully consider the resources needed to successfully implement the proposed project and present a realistic budget that accurately reflects project costs. Also, remember the various partners associated with your application. Budget caps, page 11 of the solicitation. The funding levels under the ICJR program for FY 2018 are as listed. Please keep in mind that your service area population will be the service area that your specific project is proposing. If you're going to be a town or county-wide project, that will be the population. If you're a statewide or regional project, that will be the population that you're associating with this dollar amount. And the same thing for reservations. So a service area population up to 500,000 will be $450,000 total. 501,000 to 900,000 will be $750,000 total. And over 900,000 in population will be $900,000 total. Understand that OVW has a discretion to award grants for greater or lesser amounts than requested, and to negotiate the scope of work and budget with applicants prior to award of a grant. Types of applicants, pages 11 through 12 of the solicitation. In FY 2018, OVW will accept applications from new applicants who have never received funding under the ICJR program or had previous funding that expired more than 12 months ago. Continuation applicants with an existing or recently closed within the last 12 months award. Due to the change in definition of unit of local government, some previous recipients of ICJR awards may not be eligible to apply for continuation funding as the lead applicant, such as any parish sheriff's office, and can apply through their unit of local government. And of course, continuation funding is not guaranteed. Grant recipients who receive new or continuation funding under the ICJR program for 36 months in FY 2016 and 2017 are not eligible to apply for funding. Please note that continuation applicants that have a substantial amount of funds remaining, 50% or more, at the time of application submission without an adequate justification may not be considered for funding in FY 2018. Eligibility, page 12 of the solicitation. Every year, we experience a number of applicants who have questions about their eligibility to apply, and it can appear to be confusing. The eligible entities that can apply directly to this solicitation are states, Indian tribal governments, state, local, tribal, and territorial courts, including juvenile courts, units of local government, and victim service providers, including state, tribal, or territorial domestic violence or sexual assault coalitions, and government rape crisis centers in a state other than a territory. On pages 13 through 14 of the solicitation, you will find the definitions that describe the eligible entities. Non-eligible entities. You'll find this on page 12 of the solicitation. Non-eligible entities cannot apply directly under this agency name because they are not units of local government for the purposes of the ICJR program, unless they meet the definition of unit of local government. So to reiterate, police departments, pretrial service agencies, district or city attorney's offices, sheriff's departments, parole and probation departments, universities, and health departments are not units of local government. Per the ICJR program solicitation, the definition of unit of local government is set forth in 34 USC 12291A40. Applications from typically non-eligible entities that want to assert unit of local government status under citation 34 USC 12291A40 must include in their application proof of such status. If these agencies or organizations do not meet the definition of unit of local government, they are not eligible to apply directly for funding, but may assume a partner role and responsibility for the development and implementation of the project. They must apply through a state, local, territorial, or tribal court, an Indian tribal government, or a unit of local government. Non-eligible entities can fill out the application and assume responsibility for the development and implementation of the project, but it has to be submitted through your state, a state, Indian tribal government, state, local, tribal, and territorial courts, including juvenile courts, or a unit of local government. Failure to comply with this will disqualify your application during the review process. Other program eligibility requirements. You'll find this on pages 15 through 16 of the solicitation. In addition to meeting the eligible entity requirements, all applicants must certify that their laws or official policies meet the requirements according to citation 34 USC 10461C in order to receive funding through the ICJR program. All certification and other eligibility related documents must be current, developed in accordance with the FY 2018 ICJR solicitation, and signed by the Chief Executive Officer of the state, Indian tribal government, or unit of local government, and submitted at the time of application submission. We have a few examples. Governor would sign for a state applicant, the chief judge or court administrator for a court applicant, and mayor, county executive, or tribal chairman for a unit of local government or Indian tribal government applicant. If you look at Appendix F, we have provided you with a sample letter. Applicants whose submissions do not meet all of the eligibility requirements at the time of application deadline will not be considered for funding. Submission of state, tribal, territorial, and/or local statutes, HIV letters, laws, and policies in lieu of a letter with proper certifications signed by the Chief Executive Officer will not satisfy these statutory requirements. Please note that applicants will not be contacted by OVW to correct certification letters. Other certifications, pages 16 through 17 of the solicitation. A special condition will be added to all awards to state and units of local governments that are funded in fiscal year 2018 to ensure compliance with the HIV testing certification listed in the slide. If you are a continuation applicant and you receive an FY 2018 ICJR award, you will again have to certify to the HIV special condition on your new FY 2018 ICJR award. It doesn't matter that you may have already certified on your previous arrest award. It is not necessary to submit the HIV certification letter at the time of application. Those applicants who are selected for awards will be required to submit an acceptable HIV certification letter along with a jurisdictional and/or state statute for review at a later date. The special condition will prohibit the drawdown of 5% of the award until an acceptable HIV certification letter and statute has been reviewed and approved by the OVW staff attorney. The submission of a certification of eligibility letter does not constitute compliance with the HIV special condition requirement. Tribes and courts are exempt from this HIV certification requirement. Regarding potential exemption to the HIV requirement, we have discovered over the past few years that there are some grantees who cannot certify to the HIV requirements because it does not apply to their jurisdiction. In the event that a unit of local government does not have the authority to prosecute crimes in which by force or threat of force, the perpetrator compels the victim to engage in sexual activity, the unit of local government may submit a letter from an appropriate legal authority in the jurisdiction certifying that the jurisdiction does not have the authority to prosecute crimes in which by force or threat of force, the perpetrator compels the victim to engage in sexual activity, and that therefore the certification is not relevant to the unit of local government in question. If this is the case, once you submit your documentation to your OVW program specialist and it's approved by one of our OVW staff attorneys, your program specialist will remove the HIV withholding special condition and you will have access to the 5% withholding of your ICJR grant funds. Certifications and documents notes. Please note that applicants will not be contacted by OVW to correct certification letters. OVW will not redirect documents that are inadvertently submitted with the wrong application, such as an ICJR cert letter that was submitted with a transitional housing program application will not be transferred to the ICJR program application. Letter of registration. You'll find this information on page 19 of the solicitation. Applicants are strongly encouraged to submit a letter of registration. The letter should state that the applying organization is registered and current with the SAM and with grants.gov. Submit to OVW at ovw.icjr@usdoj.gov by February 8th, 2018. The letter will not obligate applicants to submit an application, and a sample letter of registration has been provided for you in Appendix B on page 55 of the solicitation. Application contents. You'll find this on pages 19 through 24 of the solicitation. The project narrative. The project narrative can be no more than 20 pages. If you submit more than 20 pages of the project narrative, that information will not be reviewed. The budget detail worksheet and narrative. The award period is 36 months, so please make sure your budget detail worksheet and narrative reflects 36 months. MOU. In the rare circumstances that a court is prohibited from entering into an MOU, a letter of commitment may be submitted, and this applies to courts only. And I will discuss this further on slide 46. The certification of eligibility letter must be submitted along with the application, and you can find a sample certification of eligibility letters starting on page 64 under Appendix F of the ICJR solicitation. Summary data sheet. The summary data sheet is 1 to 4 pages in length and may be single or double spaced. This does not count towards the 20-page limit for the project narrative. Please provide a statement as to whether you are addressing the trafficking priority area. This is a new priority area this year for the FY 2018 ICJR solicitation. Please identify the project focus, such as, is it a law enforcement project, prosecution, courts, family justice center, training, special projects within the scope of the ICJR program. Please provide the start and end date of your next state or tribal legislative session. Make sure you address at least one of the statutory purpose areas. If your program can only address one, that's fine. There is no contest of how many you can address. Please stay in parameters of what your project can do. Don't be overzealous. Applicants are not required to address the statutory priority and/or OVW priority areas, but should clearly state which priority areas will be addressed by application, if applicable, and for state and unit of local government applicants only. Please provide a statement as to whether the application is in compliance with the HIV requirement. Please see HIV certification, assurance, or exemption letter under the eligibility information section. The summary data sheet must address numbers 1 through 19 in your attachment. Please be sure to address all these questions that we ask in the summary data section. The proposal abstract. The proposal abstract should be no more than 2 pages and should be double-spaced. It provides a short and accurate summary of the proposed project, including who will be involved with the proposed project, what will be done as primary activities, what products will be produced, the service area where the proposed project will take place, and who will be impacted by the proposed project. Applicants should not summarize past accomplishments in this section. The project narrative. The project narrative may not exceed 20 pages in length. It is double-spaced and is comprised of the following 4 sections: the purpose of your application, what will be done, who will implement the project, and the budget. Please stay within the budget caps, and please be mindful of the budget caps. Be sure your budget reflects 36 months. The budget should not contain any items that are not detailed in the project narrative. A sample budget detail worksheet is available for your use in Appendix A of the solicitation on pages 43 through 53 and can be used as a guide. Grantees under this program may not issue a solicitation or request for proposals redistributing these funds after receiving an award. The budget is separate in itself, and it is not part of the 20-page narrative. It's separate in itself. Training and technical assistance on page 24 of the solicitation. Both new and continuation applicants are required to set aside $10,000. Applicants from Alaska, Hawaii, or a U.S. territory are required to set aside $15,000. And again, this only applies to applicants from Alaska, Hawaii, or a U.S. territory. The $10,000 and the $15,000 set aside is for the entire 36 months. Memorandum of Understanding, and you'll find this on pages 24 through 25 of the solicitation. Applicants are required to submit an MOU that demonstrates they have consulted and coordinated in a meaningful way with victim service providers and, if appropriate, population-specific organizations for sexual assault and/or domestic violence programs. This is the foundation of your project. For the purposes of this application, the Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, is a document containing the terms of the partnership and the roles and responsibilities between 2 or more parties. The MOU should be a single document and should be signed and dated by the authorized representative of each proposed partner agency during the development of the application. For your reference, check the SF 424 for the definition of the authorized representative. Check the SF 24 section within the solicitation. The MOU can include multiple signature pages as long as each page includes the name and title of each signing party. Previously funded applicants must develop a new MOU that reflects the continuation of project activities and includes current dates and signatures from all relevant project partners. The MOU must identify the partners and provide a brief history of the collaborative relationship among those partners, including when and under what circumstances the relationship began and when each partner entered into the relationship. The 7 criteria that the MOU must address are outlined on page 25 of the solicitation. Also, please note, letters of support may not be submitted in lieu of the MOU. Clearly state the roles and responsibilities each organization or agency would assume to ensure the success of the proposed project. Please include project-specific partners. Describe the resources each partner would contribute to the project, either through time, in-kind contributions, or grant funds. For example, office space, project staff, and training. Please specify the extent of each partner's participation in developing the application. Demonstrate a commitment on the part of all project partners to work together to achieve stated project goals. Indicate approval of the proposed project budget by all signing parties. Identify the representatives of the planning and development team who will be responsible for developing and implementing project activities, and describe how they will work together with project staff. And this must be on letterhead of the governmental applicant, partner, state, unit of local government, and signed by the designated official signatory. Jacques, I'm going to redo that portion again so you can cut this piece out. must be, I'm gonna redo this whole section again. Demonstrate a commitment on part of all project partners to work together to achieve stated project goals. Indicate approval of the proposed project budget by all signing parties. Over the years, we found out that all the partners that are noted in the MOU are not signing that they indicate approval of the proposed project budget by all signing parties. That line needs to be in the MOU as well. Please identify the representatives of the planning and development team who will be responsible for developing and implementing project activities, and describe how they will work together and with project staff. And it must be on letterhead of the governmental applicant part, the applicant or the partner, state, unit of local government, and signed by the designated official signatory, the governor, mayor, county administrator, chief judge, principal, chief, etc. Trafficking priority area on page 25 of the solicitation. Applicants applying under the trafficking priority area must also clearly identify which organization or organizations has the expertise in providing services to victims of trafficking. Include how many years the organizations have been providing services for victims of trafficking. Please detail the personnel designated to provide services to victims of trafficking, including the name and title of each person and how many years each staff person has been providing services to victims of trafficking. Please include a local, state, and/or federal law enforcement agency and a local, state, and/or federal prosecutor's office as MOU partners. Please note that federal law enforcement agencies and U.S. attorneys' offices cannot receive Improving Criminal Justice Responses Program grant funds and should not be compensated within your budget. Underserved populations, you'll find this on page 25, pages 24 through 25 of the solicitation. Applicants applying under the underserved populations priority area must also clearly identify which organizations has the expertise in providing targeted population-specific services to victims, and detail the personnel with expertise in providing targeted population services to victims, including the name and title of each person and how many years each staff person has been providing such services. This next slide is for court projects only, so please pay special attention to this particular slide. For court projects only, a letter of commitment will only apply in very rare circumstances and is not required of courts to proceed with a project's application. MOUs are the preferred application submission item. Courts may submit a letter of commitment in lieu of a MOU. Let me repeat that. Courts may submit a letter of commitment in lieu of a MOU. If the court is the lead applicant, all partners must submit a letter of commitment. If the court is not the lead applicant and is only a partner, then the court may submit a letter of commitment. The primary applicant and all other partners must submit an MOU. Failure to submit the correct documents or certifications will exclude applications from further consideration for funding. Court applicants and partners considering using a letter of commitment are encouraged to contact the ICJR unit to discuss this further. Additional information. You'll find this on pages 26 through 29 of the solicitation. Additional information that is required in the application: the application for federal assistance, which is the SF-424. These documents will not be scored during the review process. Let me back up. Jock, let me redo this piece again. Additional information, pages 26 through 29 of the solicitation. Additional information that is required in the application: These documents will not be scored during the review process, but they should be included with the applicant's submission. Failure to include any of the information may result in the application that is selected for funding being removed from consideration for funding. The application for federal assistance, or the SF-424. Applicants must complete the SF-424 online. For type of applicant, please do not select other. Pay careful attention to the amount of federal funding requested in the estimated funding section of this form. This amount must match the amount of federal funding requested in the budget section of the application package. This program does not require a match, therefore, the values for applicant line should be 0. The individual who is listed in authorized representative must be an individual who has the authority to apply for and accept grant awards on behalf of the organization or jurisdiction. The standard assurances and certifications requiring lobbying, debarment, suspension, and other responsibility matters, and drug-free workplace requirements, Form 4061/6. Carefully review the assurances and certification forms online. Applicants will receive a request to compile these forms online during the application submission process. All applicants must complete the disclosure of lobbying activities, or the SF-LLL form. Applicants that expend any funds for lobbying activities must provide the detailed information requested on the form. Applicants that do not expend any funds for lobbying activities should enter NA for not applicable in the required highlighted field. The following documents should be uploaded and attached to the application. The confidentiality notice form. All applicants are required to acknowledge that they have received notice that grantees and sub-grantees must comply with the confidentiality and privacy requirements of the Violence Against Women Act as amended. This form must be signed by the authorized representative and uploaded with the application in grants.gov. Applicants must submit the acknowledgement form available on the OVW website, and we have provided you with the link in this slide. The letter of non-supplanting. Applicants must submit a letter to OVW's director signed by the authorized representative, certifying that federal funds will not be used to supplant state or local funds should a grant award be made. Please refer to the link in this slide for further information. This should also be a separate attachment to the application in grants.gov, the letter of non-supplanting. Financial accounting practices. Applicants must prepare a response to the questions provided under this section, and you'll find this on pages 28 through 29 of the solicitation. OVW will review the applicant's responses to assist in evaluating the adequacy of the organization's financial management system and to identify areas of need for training and technical assistance. This section of your application should be no more than 2 pages and should be a separate attachment to the online application in grants.gov. The indirect cost rate agreement, only if applicable. Applicants that intend to charge indirect costs through the use of an indirect cost rate must have a federally approved indirect cost rate agreement. Please include a copy of a current signed, federally approved indirect cost rate agreement. This should be a separate attachment to the application in grants.gov. Organizations that wish to negotiate an indirect cost rate may contact OVW's Grant Financial Management Division at ovw.gfmd@usdoj.gov or 1-888-514-8556 for more information. Registration. You'll find this on pages 30 through 31 of the solicitation. Each applicant must obtain a Data Universal Numbering System, or DUNS, number. Be registered in the system for award management, which is SAM, and submit the application online via grants.gov. Please register immediately, but no later than February 8th, 2018. Please ensure the DUNS number for the application is for an organization that is eligible to apply for the grant program. Only the organization that is registered in SAM may use that DUNS number and grants.gov registration to submit an application. So if you are not an eligible entity to apply directly to this solicitation, you cannot use your DUNS number. You have to apply through the unit of local government or state or tribal government. Only the organization that is registered in SAM may use that DUNS number and grants.gov registration to submit an application. System for Award Management, or SAM. Applicants for all federal grants are required to register with the System for Award Management, or SAM. If your organization already has an employer identification number, or an EIN, your SAM registration will take up to 2 weeks to process. If your organization does not have an EIN, then you should allow 2 to 5 weeks for obtaining the information from the IRS when requesting the EIN via phone, fax, mail, or internet. Please follow the steps on page 30 of the solicitation on how to register in the SAM. Submission dates and times. You'll find this on pages 31 through 32 of the solicitation. All applications will be submitted electronically in grants.gov. The deadline for submitting applications is 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time on February 27th, 2018. Applications submitted after 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on February 27th, 2018 will not be considered for funding. Applicants experiencing difficulty submitting an application should refer to the Experiencing Unforeseeable Technical Issues section on pages 33 through 34 of this solicitation. Applicants are strongly encouraged to submit their applications at least 48 but no less than 24 hours before the deadline. And after application submission, the authorized rep should closely monitor their emails for any notification from grants.gov about a possible failed submission. The authorized rep will receive a minimum of 2 emails from grants.gov. One will confirm receipt of the application packet. The other will either notify the authorized rep that the application was successfully submitted, or it will notify the authorized rep that there was an error with the application submission. I can't stress enough how important it is that you do not wait at the last minute to submit your application. More than likely, you will possibly run into a technical difficulty. And OVW staff, we're not here, unfortunately, we're not here 24 hours a day. Applicants should not wait until the day of the application deadline to begin the application submission, and that's very, very important. Please note that the grants.gov notification process is automatic. OVW does not send out these notifications, nor does OVW receive a copy of these notifications. It is the responsibility of the applicant to notify OVW of any problems with the application submission process. Please see Experiencing Technical Difficulties Prior to or During Application Submission Issues on pages 33 through 34 for information on the steps applicants must follow if corrective action must be taken. OVW policy on late submissions. OVW offers several options for applicants to provide advance notice to OVW if receipt of your application will be delayed due to a temporary lack of internet access or other technical difficulties or geographic isolation. If you do not provide advance notice to OVW about an issue that may cause a delay in the submission of the application, then the application will not be considered for funding. Please follow the steps outlined on pages 32 through 33 of the solicitation concerning late submissions, experiencing unforeseen tech issues, and extraordinary natural or man-made disasters. Late submission may be considered. Extension of deadlines is not guaranteed. Intergovernmental review, and you'll find this on page 34 of the solicitation. Executive Order 12372 requires applicants from state and local units of government or other organizations providing services within a state to submit a copy of the application to the state single point of contact, if one exists, and if the state has selected this program for review. Applicants must contact their state single point of contact to determine whether their programs have been selected for state review. Food and beverage costs for refreshments, meals, and conference planning. You'll find this on pages 35 through 36 of the solicitation. Funding may not be used to supply food and/or beverages for refreshment breaks at meetings, conferences, trainings, or other events. OVW may approve the use of funds to provide food and/or beverages for a meal at a meeting, conference, training, or other event under certain circumstances, as noted on page 35 of the solicitation. Applicants should be aware of the specific restrictions on conference planning and expenditure limitations on page 35 of the solicitation. Additional information regarding food and beverage regulations can be found in the OVW Financial Grants Management Guide, and we provided you with the link here provided within this slide. Grants.gov, pages 36 through 37 of the solicitation. Registering in Grants.gov. After you obtain your DUNS number and register with SAM, you can begin the Grants.gov registration process. In order to apply for a grant, your organization must complete the Grants.gov registration process prior to beginning an application for a federal grant. Complete instructions can be found at Grants.gov. The registration process can take between 3 and 5 business days, or as long as 4 weeks if all steps are not completed in a timely manner. Please note that Grants.gov is not the Office of Justice Programs, OJP Grants Management System, GMS, through which OVW discretionary program applicants have submitted applications in previous years. If you experience difficulties at any point during this process, please call the Grants.gov customer support hotline at 1-800-518-4726. Grants.gov limits the use of specific characters and names of attachment files. Please follow the instructions on page 37 of the solicitation. Tips for a successful application. Please read the solicitation in its entirety before applying, and I can't stress how important that is. I can't stress that enough. Please follow the solicitation. Please provide relevant, detailed information about your proposed project. The information presented in the application will be the only information used to review and score your application during OVW's peer review process. Please use all available assistance during your application process. Please refer to OVW staff, some of our technical assistance providers for those of you who are continuation applicants. Please pay close attention to the solicitation, keeping in mind application registration and submission dates. Please do not wait until the last day to upload your application. Let me repeat. Please do not wait until the last day to upload your application. Grant managers, we do not work 24/7. And so if you experience a problem after normal working hours, it could mean all of your hard work was for nothing. Please ensure that each section is completely addressed, even if it feels redundant. Please be sure to include section headers. As you draft your project narrative, if it asks for you to provide information under the purpose area, please use that particular heading. Please use headings for what will be done, the target population. It's very, very difficult when everything is meshed together and it's not separated out by using the correct section headers. And that's extremely important. We want to make sure that we can clearly identify and understand what your proposal is all about. So please use section headers. You want to number all of your pages. Please limit the use of acronyms included in the application. Make sure as you attach various documents for uploading that they are the final version and contain the corresponding document. Please upload each attachment and provide a simple and clear and concise title. For example, preferred FY 2018 program narrative, or FY 2018 budget narrative, or FY 2018 abstract. Please just don't title it FY 2018, FY 2018. Please use the appropriate name for your particular document. For your project narrative, again, title it FY 2018 program narrative, FY 2018 budget narrative, FY 2018 abstract, FY 2018 summary data sheet, and so forth. Not preferred, and please don't title it as attachment or final or document or incredibly long, vague titles. We provide you contact information for the solicitation point of contact. That would be Ms. Kaylin Crockett. Her email is there, kaylin.crockett@usdoj.gov. Her phone number is area code 202-616-5342, or you can call the OVW main line at area code 202-307-6026 and ask to speak to a member of the ICJR unit. You can also send any solicitation questions to the OVW ICJR unit mailbox. We respond to these emails daily. That's ovw.icjr@usdoj.gov. We want to thank you and good luck.